In today's episode of the Motorhome Matt podcast,
we're back with another full Q&A answering your questions on
using a socket tester at home, motorhome aircon choices, using wheel covers, travelling with spare licence plates, and more.
And in the news, get the free Great Motorhome Guide from Warranty Solutions Group.
Welcome to the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
Industry insights and expert advice for the world of motorhomes, caravans and campervans. It's brought to you by thatleisureshop.com and sponsored by Ripe.
Remember, please follow on your favourite podcast app, or if you're watching on YouTube, click subscribe and that little bell.
If things look a little bit different to you, it's not you. It's us. Our desk has been sanded and smoothed by the wonderful Darren at That Leisure Shop, and we are now slightly on the angle of the dangle.
You keep your dangle out of this.
So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you like it.
It's quite comfortable, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got signs behind us, sponsors behind us. There you go.
That was great for audio. Well done.
Yeah. So I moved my head to the left. You can get your free copy of the Warranty Solutions Group Great Motorhome Guide 2026. How'd you get it then, Matt?
Yeah, you can head to wsgwarranties.co.uk/great-motorhome-guide-2026.
I'll repeat that for the hard of short online addresses. It's wsgwarranties, that's ies.co.uk/great-motorhome-guide-2026.
And it's definitely worth typing all of that in to get it. It will be in the episode description where you can click it, which is going to be much easier. But it's a brilliant read. It's completely free. There's a contribution in there from me, and there's loads of free hints, trips and travel advice and a competition. So do go and get your copy. Thank you to Warranty Solutions Group for producing another great magazine.
Yeah, thanks to Warranty Solutions Group and all our other partners at the podcast. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you again. We're recording this, I suppose, at the peak of summertime, and by the time you see or hear it, it might not be. But I just want just a quick one, Matt. It's not in the script, but if you're using the M5, it has been absolutely terrible the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. I mean, for being closed, for accidents, for people doing naughty things on bridges and all the rest of it. I'm just pleading with you to be careful. Please, not you.
Okay.
He's the cause of most of the accident. No, he's not. But yeah, if you're using the M5 and going down to the southwest, just be patient. Remember, we drive on the left.
It's such a fine balance here in the southwest. When that motorway goes wrong, it causes chaos on all the A roads. Yeah. And if there's then a subsequent issue on an A road, it's happened many times in my working life. I've spent 7 or 8 hours trying to get home because 2 or 3 instances have happened at the same time. It's a nightmare. So I think our local MP is actually appealing to, it was Keir Starmer.
Your local MP's appealing?
Yeah. I don't even know who they are. But I think there was an appeal to Parliament to do something about it because it's too fine a balance, too fine a line between working perfectly and utter chaos. And it seems even when it is working perfectly, there's always a pinch point, isn't there, around Clevedon. If you headed south, you'll know this. You've got this elevated section where south and north are on different levels, completely different heights, and they queue there. The traffic just seems to gather. It's a nightmare every Friday. It's horrendous.
Yeah, and if you don't know the motorway, like is your first or second go, remember at Almondsbury interchange at Bristol, if you're coming up from London on the M4, that can be confusing. The sign's not. I don't think they're brilliant. And again at Exeter, just make sure you get in lane nice and early, and keep your speed down. Now, I'm just asking you to do this. I saw a terrible news story just a few weeks ago about someone who had been involved in a crash, and there was a 13-year-old lad in the car, and he didn't make it. Just be careful. I'm just asking you. Okay?
Take care.
Yeah.
And if you are stuck in traffic, come and pop into one of our shops, North and South Somerset.
Always worth a drop-off.
If you need a wee or something else, you can drop off. That's not what you meant, is it?
That's not what I meant. But if you need a wee.
And the coffee machine's always on. So, yeah, pop in and see the team.
Okay, it is one of our Q&A episodes. You ask the questions, Motorhome Matt, he gives the answers. You asked so many questions of us that we couldn't keep them all into the episodes. We usually do them at the end of the episodes if you're watching or listening to this for a first time. So every month or so we do an episode which is all your questions and answers. And thanks for submitting them. First of all, Sarah Hutt.
Well, hello there, Matt. This is Sarah and Paul in our very retro 2005 Auto Trailer 600 SE. Presently coping in 40 degrees in the south of France and slightly melting as we have no air conditioning. We would like to stay here if we survive, but just wondering, what would you recommend as an air conditioning unit that we could have fixed into Bertha, our beautiful motorhome, to save us from actually just vaporising at the moment? I'm sure you have some really good suggestions and setups that you could talk about, and I'm sure not just us would be interested, but other people too. Presently, we're both off for another cold shower. Looking forward to hearing from you. Bye.
There's Sarah Hutt. I know her brother Jabber. He's a film star. Sorry, I bet you've heard that loads, haven't you, Sarah? Okay. She's suffering from air conditioning lighters. We've all had it when you're lying in bed or even in your caravan or a motorhome and it's 27 degrees outside overnight and you think, I must get air conditioning. Don't buy those little ones they advertise, by the way, online on those social media channels. They don't work. It's tiny. It's like a shoebox.
Really small.
Yeah, and they say this will cool down the house in 50. It's nonsense. Okay, it's nonsense.
I think you've got to be pretty realistic. Common sense has to play a part here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The beauty there about a motorhome is it's a small space. It's not like the house, so you are only cooling a smaller space. So much easier to cool than your house. I can tell you what we use, Sarah. We have got a portable unit. I think ours is made by a company called Total Cool. You put water in it, and we put a frozen ice pack in it as well.
That's the key. Air conditioning is done.
Well,
it acts like a fridge, and you blow the cold air, don't you?
Yeah, so this is not air conditioning. It's only air cooling.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is the fan's blowing through the cold water and the ice pack, and it's blowing cold air. It is fairly localised, but they do work really well. And we put one, if we can, up high. We've got a shelf we can put it on, depending which motorhome we're in, and that heats the hot air at the top, causing convection. So you end up with the hot air at the bottom rising, being cooled, and so you end up with a cooler motorhome. Keeping the blinds closed is key, and windows vented, so open up. If you've got Truma heating, there is a vent function, which many people don't realise exists. Don't have the heating on, the hot water on, go across to the fan and press it and then roll the wheel. And this is on the iNet compatible control panel. Those that got one will know what I'm talking about. And it says vent, and you can turn it up to 10. And that will actually just blow the ambient air around the van. If you're cooling it, you're then blowing cooled air around the van. So a really handy feature that most people have no idea exists. You could buy a portable air conditioning unit, but then you're dealing with trying to get a pipe out the window or an external unit. They do exist. My experience is they're not terribly effective. I know lots of people have max air fans, at least one installed, and they replace the roof light and they have a fan, and you either blow air in or blow air out. You can choose which direction it's going. And the trick with a max air is to actually have two. So one blows air out and the other pulls air in. So you're circulating air through the van. So you're refreshing the van. And if you're cooling that air somehow inside the van, you're blowing cool air around in the van. You can get under-seat aircon units. I did a quick Google of them yesterday before recording this. That they seem to be under £2,000. If you've got space under a back seat, then you could maybe fit one of those. A roof aircon from the likes of Truma, you're now into getting something professionally installed, and you're looking at probably £2,000 plus. I think we just did one for a customer and it was £2,300 fitted by Truma on site here, and their engineer came and did it. Brilliant unit, and they've got a new unit which we talked about last year on the podcast, which is really good. They do draw a lot of power. So you have to be on mains hookup, and you have to be on a campsite that will allow you to draw a sufficient amount of power for it to work. The new trim one has a soft start. The old ones, or cheaper ones, when you turn them on, there's a huge spike. It just trips the campsite. So it always struck me as ironic that wherever you want to use it, you just killed the power.
Is that British campsites?
Useless. That was in France.
That's in France, yeah.
So now they've got a soft start, so they don't trip the power.
There's not a spike.
And there's a new unit as well from Teleco, the Ultra Comfort Aircon unit, and that fits in the cab down by your knees between front seats, where the glove box is, between you, under the gear stick, and it fits in there. And again, I think it's nearly £3,000.
Wow.
To have it.
But aircon is not cheap wherever you buy it, whichever country.
That's quite a massive job to install. That's front bumper off and having it fitted. That's a relatively recent innovation, and it works without the engine running, so it's standalone. So there are lots of options from a few £100 or less up to a few £1,000.
So what's wrong with just leaving your engine running and your air conditioning going and blowing into the cabin?
Well, you're going to upset your neighbours if you're
Right.
constantly ticking over.
Yeah.
It's not terribly good for the van
No.
if it's not being driven.
Oh, is it not? Right.
Because it relies on air going through the engine bay.
Yep.
Yeah, I know it's got a fan, but it's not clever for it
No.
to leave it running for long periods. And the aircon in the cab is a bit like your portable fan.
Yes.
You're asking the aircon of a cab to cool an entire habitation area. It's not very effective at doing that.
No.
So if you arrive with the cab cold, then you're off to a fighting start.
You mentioned having the blinds down, but a little birdie mentioned to me that that's not necessarily a good thing for the windows.
No, there is a risk if they're silver lined that the heat can reflect off the blind back onto the plastic window and actually melt them and deform them. I've seen this year, particularly with roof lights, where people have closed the roof light blind and then the window's actually deformed, where the heat's bounced back and melted it. So be aware of it. Crack the window open so that heat can escape.
Yeah, warm air rises.
It does, yeah. So leave the window open, just on vent, so the window stays secure. And remember, if you are going off for the day, secure the windows into a vent position so that you are keeping the van secure.
Yeah, a cheap method, which I don't know if it'll work for you or not, but I've used it when I lived in America years and years and years ago without an air conditioner. Go down the supermarket, buy a few bags of ice cubes, and you can in this country as well.
You can now, yeah.
They're £1 a bag. 3 or 4 would do. Empty them into a sink, preferably a metal sink, but if it's not metal, it doesn't really matter. Pour some salt on the top. Now that could be dishwasher salt. If you want to use a few ice cubes, it could be rock salt. That lowers the temperature again in the ice. It makes it colder, and then blow a fan across it, and you've got a homemade air conditioning unit.
That sounds very Heath Robinson.
It's extremely Heath Robinson, but when it's 104 outside, you sit
Anything
by
to
it
do.
and oh, thank you.
There you are, Sarah.
Yeah.
Off to the supermarket, bags of ice and a cheap fan.
David Yates is in Godalming. Hello, Matt and Keith. As an electrical engineer, I watched with a great interest your recent podcast with Jordan Farley on the risk, admittedly very low, of electrocution when connecting to a home electrical supply due to a broken earth connection from the district network operator, or also in your own hookup cable. This could result in the van chassis rising to mains voltage.
He goes on, a method I use to ensure that the earth is present before touching my van is to plug in a mains socket tester into the van before connecting the hookup cable. Ensure the tester is visible from outside the van through a window or an open door.
And once the supply is connected, he goes on to say, check that the tester indicator lights are not showing that the earth connection is missing from the outside before touching the van. If it is, disconnect the supply immediately and attempt to find the cause. This may require seeking professional help. These socket testers can be bought for less than £10 from the likes of Screwfix or Toolstation and are an invaluable test tool.
I use the same method to check the earth is present on the supply of each campsite I visit before stepping into the van for the first time. Once the earth connection is verified, the socket tester can be unplugged.
Well, what do you say to all that then?
It's a very good idea. I actually go a step further than that. So I use a 16 to 13 socket adapter and I plug the tester into that and check the outlet on the house. I then plug it into the end of my hookup cable and then I'm checking my hookup cable, and then I hook the van up and put the tester in the van, and I test every socket. So I'm now testing all the sockets. I do the same on campsites. I do the same at shows, and regularly the Sparky will say, "What are you doing?" I'm just checking your electrical installation. They don't like it. So it is a very good idea. You could, though, if you are worried about getting a shock off your van, you need to watch the episode to understand what on earth we're talking about, because there is a risk. It is very small, but I wanted to convey the risk.
Yes.
And help people understand that there is a risk and why and what we can do about it. Like David is doing here, I just disconnect the van from the house before I go anywhere near it. Ours is a metal van. It's not a coach built, so you are potentially insulated from it if it's a coach built plastic door handle on a coach built.
But the
vehicle.
key word you're using there is potentially.
Yeah. So I disconnected from the house when I go to the van, and then the van's disconnected. So there is no risk at all. But testing it is a very good idea. And those little socket testers are only a tenner, and they're worth investing in.
And we get lots of people saying, "Oh, the risk is minuscule, it's tiny," and all the rest. But if you go back and have a look at that recent podcast that we did, you'll see where we're coming from, and also the expert that Matt was talking to
Jordan
about it. Jordan,
and thank you again, Jordan, for coming in.
We're just pointing out the risk. We don't want somebody. We don't sending us a photograph saying, "I wish Motorhome Matt had told my husband," and there's this hole in the ground.
Well, most people are saying, "I wish Motorhome Matt was shut up." I've been getting a slating. I've found myself being mentioned
but
in various Facebook groups, of which I am a member under a different name, my own name, and I'm not going to name the groups. And it's been talked about a lot, which I love. I love the fact it's being discussed. And there's some proper nasty people in the world.
Oh, there are. But these are the people that, before social media came along, used to be shouting at pigeons. But anyway.
I wish they'd go back to shouting at pigeons. Meanwhile, they got new batteries in their keyboards and time on their hands, it seems. So have a go at Motorhome Matt. But there is a risk. And many of us, like me, have been doing it for decades, and we've never had a problem. Fine. And I'll keep doing it, as I say in the episode, as no doubt many of us will. But I think being aware that there is a potential of a life-threatening risk is a good bit of knowledge to have.
Absolutely. Yes. Sarah Turner has got in touch. She says we're with Ripe, which is the sponsor of the Motorhome Matt podcast. By far the most competitive priced and great European cover. Absolutely no hassle customer service. They actually went over and above to help us get the best price. And Sarah says thanks to Ripe. Thank you for the question,
Thank
Sarah.
you, Sarah. So Ripe came back to us with an answer, Sarah. They said, "Hi, this is amazing. It's so lovely to hear of your positive experience, and we really appreciate you letting us know. Another happy Ripe customer. Thanks," said Mel from the Ripe team.
So, Matt, why do you recommend Ripe?
Well, I've been mystery shopping them for quite a while before we got involved with them, and they were new to our market with a new product for this audience. And I was thoroughly impressed with their customer service. It would seem generally their premiums are incredibly competitive. The offering they have is very complete. You can tailor it. So if you're not going to Europe, don't have European cover. If you want breakdown, buy the breakdown. And their entire team is in the UK. They're all based in Manchester. And Mel is the lady that runs the call centre. And you can make an inquiry online. It's pretty simple. Or you could give them a ring. And they have always been incredibly helpful. I was that awkward customer trying to change my policy when I was mystery shopping.
Surely.
Yeah, of course. And I did put them through the ringer a little bit. But nothing was too much trouble. Now, not everyone has had a fantastic experience like Sarah. And we know that, and Ripe know that too. Yeah. And what we've been doing is sending that feedback to Ripe. I've sent a couple to them over the last few days.
And they have, when we've done that in the past, we've covered it on the podcast, where the customer service perhaps wasn't as good as it should have been. They've put it right.
They have got in touch with me and fed back to me, and they've got in touch with the customer and fed back to them. So if you've had a problem trying to get a quote and you're not sure why, or the quote just seems exorbitant, which I'd be surprised, but it might do, give them a call. Let me know as well. And if I can help, I will. And Maddie and I monitor all the feedback we get, and we do send it into Ripe. And they are brilliant at coming back to us and coming back to you as well. They really do have a heart and a passion for serving the customer and doing a great job. They can't be the best all the time. They're an insurer. they are not going to be the best fit for everyone.
Insurance companies are insuring risk, so don't take it personally if you don't get the question that you want.
No.
They've got these algorithms and they're insuring risk. But what we have heard about Ripe is they do have a human face. And by the way, they answer calls within 60 seconds, which I think is just fantastic.
And they've changed the policy as a response to feedback that you've given me in the podcast. So, they are, I think, one to check out for your policy.
Get 15% off your premium with Ripe. The discount applies automatically if you click the link in the episode description. Right now then, another question from you. Dave is in Chester.
Matt, hi, it's Dave here from Chester. We've just recently bought an Imola 615 motorhome and enjoying it very much. We were at Barmouth at the weekend, which was incredibly hot. It was like going to Spain for the weekend. I couldn't help notice a few vehicles had covers on the wheels, covering up the tyre, covering up the wheel, and I didn't know whether that was a thing. I've never seen that before. Never heard about it. Is it because of the sun? Is it a fad? What do you think?
Wheel covers. Fashion or fab idea?
I think if you're in situ for a long time, then they're a good idea, and they are designed, Dave, you're right, to protect the tyres from the UV. So ultraviolet rays from the sun can damage the tyre walls. It can make them fade, and it can cause them to weaken, making them crack. So if you're parked up in situ for a long period in a sunny clime, then they are a good idea. And people use blocks of wood or sheets of wood cut to shape, or white kind of PVC covers that go on the wheels that you can buy, and you just pull them tight with a drawstring on the back, but that's why they have them.
But we have our cars at home and you don't see people putting wheel covers on.
No, it's true, you don't, and I don't know why motorhomers. I think it's probably one of those products that's quite easy to sell to someone who's prepared to spend money on their passion. We don't sell them at that leisure shop. And I've never had anyone come in and ask me if we do. I don't think any of the team have. So if you'd like a set, maybe we'll get some for you.
I've got a good idea. Instead of putting the wheel covers on, get a nice metal bowl, fill it full of ice and put a fan in front of it. No? Tony Storers in Halesworth. Hi, Matt and Keith. This is not a question. Sorry, Keith. But information that might be interesting. I was fortunate to have a question included in a podcast about go boxes in Austria and Croatia, which was answered by Wandering Bird. Thank you very much, says Tony. In that trip, somewhere in Austria or Croatia, we lost our rear number plate. With some hassle and a bit of worry, we completed the trip using a handmade plate. Yeah, I've seen them. It proved impossible to get a replacement plate, either locally or shipped out in time. Now, the information bit is that if it had been the front plate, it would have been real hassle, as so much now uses an ANPR, automatic number plate
recognition.
That's the one. So how many carry spare number plates when going outside the UK? And is it a serious consideration to do so? Whoops, he says, just asked a question.
Blimey, I've never considered this. Is this one of these things where I'm going to get thrown under the bus again for making people worry about something they really don't need to worry about?
I understand it's happened to Tony, but I mean, surely just checking the screws on your number plate would do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well,
just give him a little tighten.
Or maybe it's stuck on with double-sided tape. But I'll tell you, the thing is, with heat, glue softens. So
especially on double-sided.
Yeah, well, look up in this studio.
Let me tell you, outside our back door.
Yeah.
I'd put little solar, really little ones, lights that come out when you go in. In the evening, you come and it just comes on.
With a PIR,
it lights for 15 seconds. A PIR, just enough to light the steps so you can step out in the dark. And these heat waves that we had, I walked out the other day and poof, it was on my head.
Fell on your head
because it's just stuck up with double-sided.
Well, there's a risk in here. The ceiling, we've got acoustic ceiling tiles all around the room here, and the ones in the ceiling have all been falling down. Some of them are coming down now. It's just the glue is not surviving the heat. So, yeah, I think there is a risk a number plate could fall off. Should you carry a spare? I do carry a spare rear one, but only because we tow a trailer. And so it lives in the garage. So if I'm hooking the trailer, there's the number plate. I've never considered carrying a spare front one. I guess if it happened to me, I probably would put that spare on the front. I know it's yellow and it should be white, but at least you've got something. But yeah, he makes a very valid point, and thank you for making it, Tony. Should you carry a spare number plate? It's one of those, isn't it? If you think it's going to fall off, good idea.
If it makes you feel better.
If it makes you feel safer, that is, yeah, or just stick it on better,
but if you
or
do
two
get
screws.
If you do get stopped by an ossifer somewhere, you're going to have to explain why you've got...
John Darmy, yeah. I mean, one made out of cardboard's probably going to get frowned upon, but better than not having one at all,
Absolutely,
I suppose.
100%.
I don't know what the rule is there. Are you a traffic officer listening to this? Would you pull over someone with a front number plate made of cardboard? At least they made an effort. I don't know.
Thanks, Tony. Anyway, David is in... No, I don't know if it's David McDonald in Edinburgh or David who's in McDonald in Edinburgh.
There's lots of commas in that.
Yes, lots of commas. So whatever it is, David in Edinburgh, apologies to you. So is it... It's David McDonald in Edinburgh. David McDonald in Edinburgh. Now.
Hi, Matt and Keith. My name's David. I'm up here in Edinburgh, and I'm currently converting a Citroen Relay into a campervan. What I'm looking for is a bike rack for an electric bike. I don't want to buy one and find that it doesn't fit. There's so much to choose from, and I just can't seem to find one that will fit on the back of my van and allow me to put my e-bike on it. Any help with this would be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much.
Cheers, David in Edinburgh. Much appreciated. Okay, his bike rack. He's worried about getting the wrong one.
Yeah, so this is for a Citroen Relay. Now, what you've not said is whether it's coach built or if it's a van. So, and they are very different bike racks. Let's assume it's a van. So it's got two opening doors at the rear. So you're into a bike rack that clamps on normally the right-hand door, and the rails are offset. Now, these types of bike racks, ones on coach builds as well, have a weight restriction of how much they can carry, and it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. It's typically 50 kilograms, but e-bike compatible bike racks will carry more, typically 60 kilograms, and you'll see that they are designed for electric bikes. Two things: one is the weight capacity, and the other is the width, often, of the bike rail, because e-bikes often, not always, but often have wider tyres. So there's two things to consider there. The other type of bike rack mount is a tow bar, and that can take normally much heavier weights because it's mounted on the tow bar, and the tow bar is easily going to take 80 kilos plus, and the racks that go on them can usually take a heavier weight as well. So check the weight capability of the bike rack. Remember, when you go over a speed bump, that bike rack is going to bounce, and you can triple the weight that's on that bike rack momentarily, and it will bend the rack.
Yeah, gravity is not your friend in that case.
So it really does exacerbate the weight. It's caused by speed ramps, going off a curb, or getting on and off of a ferry. And we've had bike racks come back here on our hire fleet, and they've really bent and won't close anymore because they've just come back from Isle of Wight and got off the ferry and big bump. And then choose the brand. So there's a number of brands that make bike racks, typically Fiamma and Thule, and that's how it's said, not Fuel, but Thule. They're the two kind of most popular makes. There are lots of other brands out there as well. Thule make a Velo Track, which is their e-bike rack, and it's designed to take a heavier weight and has the option, I believe, of wider tracks. Fiamma, if your van is a van with two back doors, the model's called a DJ200, and it clamps onto the door and you can bolt it, and their advice is, you don't have to, but their advice is to drill the door and screw it to stop it slipping down the door.
Don't use double-sided.
Well, don't use double-sided tape, not in this heat. But they also, I would always recommend fitting some 3M tape. Helicopter leading edge blade tape is really good to stop them scratching the paint. But if you're going to drill a hole, you're going to damage the door anyway. But you don't have to drill the door. Mine, on our van, we have the same split doors at the back. They're not drilled. And I've actually now taken the bike rack off because we put our e-bikes inside. They fold up. And the other big consideration with e-bikes is take the battery off, because you don't want that left out because of rain. And I think there's always a risk of water damage if you're leaving it on the van. And the other big risk, of course, is theft. So make sure you lock the bikes to the rack. The other handy feature which you can purchase, and ours has this. Our van does have an alarm, and somebody before me, the first owner of the van, fitted a little socket where you can plug in an audio jack, like a headphone jack, and there's a cable with 2 jacks. You plug in, round the bikes, and back in the other side. Creates a loop. And if you unplug the jack, it sets the alarm off.
Right.
It's a really clever feature. So particularly protecting expensive bikes. Hope that helps.
Okay, David, thanks for your question. It's our questions and answers episode, the Q&A. We've got more questions on the way from Wendy Driver in Swindon, Dominic McCready in Aberdeenshire, and Vince Knight in Worthing.
It's a great pleasure to welcome Lee Davey back into the studio from the dark side.
Yeah, I'm a caravaner, so apologies for that.
Have you brought your wobble box with you?
I haven't today, no, but if we are stayed at a campsite together and to save you waiting at the bus stop to get somewhere, I'll be more than happy to give you a lift in with my tow car. So.
With your car?
Yeah, exactly.
I get it. But when we're ready to pack up and go, I'll be an hour ahead of you because I've just flipped up my levelers and I'm off.
At my age, you'll be 2 hours ahead of me.
That's fair. But we're going to a campsite in Spain this month. It is time for Alan Rogers' Campsite of the Month feature. So where are we going this month, Lee?
We are going northeastern Spain, camping at Las Dunas in Catalonia.
So we were in northeastern Spain last month. We're back there again.
You can never have too much of a good thing.
So this is an area which we said last month that often we just drive into Spain and we don't stop, keep going. But there's good reason to stop, isn't there?
There is indeed. I mean, as I mentioned last month, if you haven't seen last month, go back and have a look. But I said the same thing last month, that if you're looking at a clock face, it's about 1-2 o'clock.
Yep.
It's Costa Brava. Don't confuse your costas. We're not talking Valencia, Alicante. We are talking that northeast coast. Lots to see and do as well.
So this is a resort-style campsite?
It is indeed, yes.
Explain what that means.
Well, we've got 1,500 pitches.
Wow, that's a big campsite.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever stayed at a campsite that's got more than 1,500 pitches.
Okay.
But you have the facilities to go with it. And the reason we are mentioning Las Dunas is because of the way it's laid out. So you have different sections as well, different alleyways. The individual pitches are hedged as well. So you're not going to be sitting there looking over 1,000 rooftops. You could be in a site with 20 pitches.
And this is something that's very common on particularly Spanish campsites, isn't it? The hedges between the pitches.
Yeah,
giving you a sense of your own space.
Yeah, they do it very well.
Yeah.
And one of the big things is that it has its own beach as well. So you can go out
Right.
there and you've got sort of a kilometre stretch of beach as well.
Now, I know where I would find you at this campsite, in the water park.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mentioned this to Matt a minute ago, that I've always been a huge fan of water parks. So the minute we get there, we have a quick look to see if the speedo rule is being adhered to. Hopefully not, because I am a man of a certain age and no one needs to see that. So we then go level the caravan, go tearing off down to the water park and we're on the water slides. This campsite has a ton of them.
And there is something for everyone here, isn't there? It's very well resourced.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I touched on this last time as well, that if you have a beach and you have the slides and you have things to do on site, you can alter your routine so it fits against everyone else's. So you can have the quiet beach when everyone's in the pools. You can enjoy the pools when everyone's at the beach. And you can go and get a bite to eat or drink at the bar when people are doing other things.
And alongside all of that, there's restaurants, supermarkets, there's everything there. And a kids' entertainment programme as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Europeans do the animation pretty well. So you've got a full... a jam-packed schedule of that as well. And as you'd expect on a resort-style campsite, if you want it, you have evening entertainment. But if you think, let's escape it for a day or possibly in the evenings, you can go around to the smaller local villages, the vineyards during the day, or even the coastal towns.
Yeah, because inland is really worth exploring. It's beautiful inland, isn't it?
It always amazes me how much more peaceful and tranquil it is inland, just by a few miles. You know, you sort of venture away from the coast. You know, I love the coast. I'm always drawn to the sea, always drawn to the pools. But sometimes you think, let's go look at something different.
Yeah.
You could be on your own.
And food and drink is a big pastime here as well in this area, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're on the Mediterranean coastline. Yeah. It's your spot for choice.
Yeah,
you know,
fantastic fish.
Fish.
And wine.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Let's not forget the wine.
Yeah, I'm partial to a glass of wine, so I don't mind some of that, yeah.
So, Lee, tell us again, where are we in Spain?
This is Camping Las Dunas in Catalonia.
Yeah, and ideal for motorhomes and caravans.
Yes, even us caravanners like to go down into Spain because, as I said earlier, we can pitch up and we can explore the local area in our car.
Yeah, that is very true. Lee Davey, thank you so much for coming into the studio again. This has been the Alan Rogers Campsite of the Month. You can find out more about this site and all of Alan Rogers' campsites, just head to mhmp.info/Alan Rogers.
It's the Motorhome Map podcast with me, Keith Goodin.
And me, Motorhome Matt.
It's brought to you with thatleisureshop.com and sponsored by Ripe. It's our Q&A episode for this month, and we have got your questions. Thanks for sending them in. We'll give you details on how you can do it at the end of the podcast. Wendy Driver, nice name, good link, is in Swindon. Why are old motorhomes so expensive? And how to avoid the unscrupulous dealer?
Wow. Well, that's quite a subjective comment, I suppose. Why is any motorhome so expensive? Prices have gone up. The good news, Wendy, is that motorhomes don't devalue like a car. You buy a Range Rover, you drive it out the showroom, and you've immediately lost at least 20%. You've certainly lost 50% of its value within the first few years. That is not the case with motorhomes. And of course, they've gone up significantly since the pandemic, as we've discussed at length on this podcast. In fact, a motorhome that was bought in 2017 brand new is probably worth the same money now in 2026. It's nuts.
It is nuts, but we should add that this isn't necessarily manufacturers and dealers dancing in the sunlight, because their costs have gone up, haven't they? The wire, the buttons, the tyres, the wheels, the metal, everything's gone up. Well,
the donor van has massively gone up. Yeah. I was talking to a converter only last week, and he was saying, we get the van, the basic van, and that is nearly 50 grand. Because they're building on a Merc or an MAN. They're not cheap. He said, and then we do our conversion, which is might be 30 or 40 grand, and suddenly it's £70,000 plus, and even £80,000. So they aren't cheap, but they hold their value really well. So once you have sunk your money into a motorhome, you are not going to lose a fortune when you come to sell it. And if you're buying an older motorhome, then I remember 10 years ago, probably you had to spend 10, 15k to get a motorhome. You really now have to spend 25, 30 to get something that has service history and is not riddled with damp and not full of problems, and which is great. Once you've bought it, you've got that value. So it's very true. And in terms of unscrupulous dealers, Google is your friend. Read reviews, try and get customer feedback from other people who've bought from them. Facebook groups are a dangerous place, but you can pop a message into a Facebook group and ask if someone has bought from a specific dealer and what was their experience.
Do you do that sort of thing on Chat with Motorhome Matt on Facebook, or do you avoid it?
Nobody's done it yet. I wouldn't have any issue with it happening. I would take umbrance, though, if someone started really bad-mouthing a dealer.
Right.
Because the
people on the group have got no evidence apart from hearsay, apart from what the person is saying.
It might be their experience.
Yeah, but what I mean is, would you recommend a dealership?
Yes, I would. Right. Yeah, absolutely, I would. And if I knew where you lived, I would commend a dealer to you locally that I had first-hand experience of. And that is what Motorhome Matt Approved is all about. They are products, brands and services, and we're working really hard to grow that directory, because particularly with dealers, we've not really engaged with dealerships on the directory, but I now want to, because I've had so many people ask me, who are the good guys? And I want to celebrate
and
the
there's
heroes.
Lots of good guys out there.
There are, and I want to celebrate those heroes. There are also lots of bad guys. And recently someone posted that the really sad news, Southwest Motorhomes, run by Sarah and the team, have just gone into liquidation a week ago. And it's heartbreaking. They were one of the good guys, without a doubt. Why did they go into liquidation? I'm actually going to go for coffee with Sarah. She's a dear friend of mine, and I've been recommending them for some time. They did sales and hire and servicing. They still have their retail side running, as that was a separate company. So Sarah's still involved actively in the industry, and I hope she continues to do so. And I hope they can bounce back from it. But for them, the issue, I believe, looking at it from the outside, and forgive me, Sarah, we're yet to have our coffee, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed to me they were selling new. And dealers that are selling new are under massive pressure at the moment because the prices are high, the product is harder to afford, and people's appetite for it is dwindling because I don't want to spend 100 grand plus.
No.
It's too much money. And 6 years ago, that was probably 60 grand.
Yeah.
And then, so the dealers sat with it on the forecourt, and then comes what's called the curtailment payment, where the finance company who own the stock just take a chunk of cash out of the bank account.
Yep.
The
We
dealer
have
can't
covered this
stop
in the
it.
podcast,
We
but
have.
just briefly, what happens with the dealership is they take they are buying your motorhome before you've bought it from a finance company. So the finance company pay the manufacturer gets all their money. It's now owned by the finance company, and it goes to the dealer, and the dealer has a certain amount of time to sell it or start paying interest.
180 days or 360 days, depends on the terms of the finance. So it's owned by the credit company, and they're, to the consumer, to you, they're faceless. You don't know who they are.
No.
But to the dealer, they're very real, because suddenly X hundreds of thousands of pounds or even millions of pounds disappears from the bank like that. And I suspect that this is what happened for Southwest Motorhomes. And I know that Sarah had a big curtailment payment coming, and they were working really hard to try and make the sales so they could make that payment. And I suspect it caught up with them. And I know lots of dealers who are struggling with this right now. And they are worried, seriously worried about losing their family business. And it is why I don't sell new motorhomes. I've been under huge pressure to sell numerous brands, and I know they would love it if I did, because we've got you, this big audience that are highly engaged, and I could promote this particular brand to you to come and buy from us here.
Yeah, and you've spent the last 5 years building trust with that audience as well.
Correct.
We must say that. It's not just about, having a sponsor and chucking out all this commercial nonsense. It's about, this podcast is about trust, isn't it?
Yes, and being genuine. And I have not engaged with manufacturers selling new, and I choose not to, because I just think it's too too big a risk. I used to own a motorhome dealership, and we would struggle with cash flow. You'd hit the wall and you hit it hard. And the problem is now, with all that stock that's gone from Southwest Motorhomes, it's going to go somewhere else. And those dealers will be almost forced to take it. If they got space on their credit line, they'll end up with it. If they haven't and they refuse it, then they'll open another dealership down the road. They'll find a dealer who's willing to take it, and suddenly you've got a dealer really close to you. It was Tom at Somerset Motorhomes live recently. We recorded an episode, and he mentioned this, and he comes from a main dealer background and is now again only selling used in Somerset, and this is why, and I share his view. So I think as an industry we do have a big challenge on trying to attract dealerships to sell new. I think that the behind the scenes terms need to become more favourable. There needs to be more support from manufacturers, and some are better than others. That's fair to say. But in terms of your particular question, Wendy, Google the dealership and go and sanity check that name on Facebook or whichever community you're in, and see if other people have had a good experience, and try and filter the bad ones out, and follow the Motorhome Matt approved directory, because we are inviting dealerships to be part of it. There is a cost to them. We're a business here. This podcast costs money. Keith's terribly expensive. But we are talking to a lot of dealerships about becoming part of that. So I can celebrate for you the heroes. So stay tuned.
Yeah, and remember, when you're talking to people, just like everything else in life, buy quality. And if the deal seems too good to be true, it usually is.
Yeah, it usually is. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for that, Wendy. I know it was a complicated answer, but hopefully it's helped you and other people. Dominic McCready's in Aberdeenshire.
Hi Matt, hi Keith, hi Maddie, hope you're well. Never see you. You need to get around the other side of the camera. I've messaged you a few times. This is Dominic from Aberdeenshire in Scotland. I've also made a comment on your recent best apps for the motorhome travel in UK and Europe. There's 2 apps on the Google Play Store called Windy. Which one is it? And the rain today, I can't find. That aside, the final thing was also when I click on the link for the download for the apps list, there's no clickable link. It takes me to that leisureshop.com. Bizarre. But I have a question. So I've been doing some research about keeping the van insulated in the winter in particular, and old Gemini, ChatGPT and all the like, they tell me that I should put thermal covers on the windows and the vents, the roof vents, in order to retain the heat, which is going to mean my gas will last longer because it's not working as hard. There's nothing out there that for A-class motorhomes. So do you guys have a recommendation on magnetic? Because I really don't want Velcro stuck to the frames of the windows. Do you have any ideas for magnetic window coverings, the acrylic windows that we've all got in our motorhomes? I'm not interested in the glass at the front. I've already got a wraparound thermal for that, but it's for the vent covers and the windows. Cheers, guys. Keep up the good work.
So that's Dominic in Aberdeenshire. Does your link stink, and should he wear his thermals?
Well, the link, you're right, it does go to that leisure shop, and that is where you sign up to get the free guide. So on that website where the link takes you, it will go to the page where you can get the free guide. So that is correct. I would speak to a custom cover maker for bespoke window insulation panels. Company like TaylorMade or Polar Technologies. Please tell them Motorhome Matt sent you. I've got a Polar Technologies silver screen on our van, and it's brilliant. I've had it for years. The first one I had was nicked. We didn't lock the van, and someone took it off and went off with it. So we bought another one. And they are brilliant and sought after, evidently. But they will make, I'm pretty sure they will make tailored size panels that you can then stick on the side windows. In terms of apps, I'm just looking on my phone. Rain Alerts no longer exists, but the Windy to go for that I've used is an orange with two, it's almost like a W, but not quite, and it's like a scoop, like a tick. That's the app I use. I'm on an iPhone, so I haven't been on the Google store. And then Rain Radar Live and Rain Alarm are also two other rain alert apps that I use. That's what they're called. But they are really useful, particularly when you're trying to plan a trip.
Okay, like I said before, Met Office Rain Radar Online is always very good. It's live satellite tracking of rain across the UK. As far as Maddie being on screen, no chance. No chance of that. No. Okay, no chance. Sorry.
That was her hand.
No chance.
Follow that leisure shop. She is sometimes on there being challenged by Ben, our social media guru, being asked questions. So yeah, go and follow that leisure shop on Facebook.
Vince Knight in Worthing. Matt and Keith, it has taken me many months to watch your entire podcast backlog. That's 5 years worth, along with Daz, Cat and the Radfords, to try and understand this way of life that we wish to become a part of. Also, a big shout out to Keith for his wonderful sense of humour.
Hey.
And promoting you to clarify information for us novice listeners.
Oh, thank you, Vince. So, to my question, we intend to retire in 2 years' time and buy either a Bailey Autograph or a Swift Contiki, both 4.5 tonnes. We intend to live in this vehicle full-time for as many years as our bodies will allow us.
At age 70, we will need to have medicals to keep our C1 licence and keep driving this weighted vehicle. If we do have any medical issues, that means we lose out our C1 entitlement. Can our 4.5 tonne vehicle be downplated to 4250? As by then, this is more than likely to be the new higher weight for C2 licences, as the EU have already adopted.
Ooh, let's see. Anyway, thanks for the great work you guys do for all of us. You have given us the knowledge and confidence to join this amazing community, and we cannot wait to get going. How lovely. Thank you, Vince. So what you haven't said is what's the payload, but then I don't think you've bought the vehicle yet.
No.
So the payload's going to be quite significant on a vehicle of that size. Over half tonne, probably closer to a tonne.
You're going to have to leave the missus at home.
Yeah. Losing 250 kilos out of it is quite significant. That's a lot of wine. And thus, the remaining payload is important. So, really important. That could impact your ability to carry a full tank of water, and whether you want to do that, because 100 litres of water is 100 kilos. So, be mindful of that. Relying on the UK government to adopt the European Fourth Directive on the driving licence is wishful thinking.
Is it wishful thinking? Because in the past we've said it's likely to happen.
I believe that the UK government will adopt it because the reason it exists is all around safety and road safety, and better training and simplifying the process. And the big benefit in it, as Vince highlights, is that the B licence will be raised to a threshold of 4250, which means as a normal car licence holder and someone over 70, you can still drive 4.25 tonnes.
Yeah.
So that's been introduced in the UK for non-ICE vehicles, so electric vans.
But even over 70-year-olds with that licence still have to renew the licence every 3 years.
You still have to renew your licence, but you can drive a heavier vehicle. That's the point.
Right, yeah.
So it exists in the UK for e-vans or non-internal combustion, so as long as it's not diesel or petrol. So some other propulsion, electric is where we're going with this. And so that is already been ratified. But the likelihood of the UK government adopting it, I think, is high. But at the moment, there is no visibility. I have no visibility that the UK government have. And let's face it, Labour Party have been distracted with lots of other things, haven't they? And so it's not been debated. In fact, the UK government has just released the Road Safety Strategy, which is a 10-year strategy on road safety in the UK. And it makes no mention of the European Fourth Directive.
But we must say, with the way Parliament works, is this can then be brought up as an amendment by a Member of Parliament.
And the Transport Secretary has made the comment that it has not yet been discussed in Parliament. But she doesn't say that it's not going to be, but she just acknowledges that it hasn't yet been. So I think the sooner we do debate it, or Parliament does debate it, I think there will be big conversation about it. And ultimately, if it's a vote winner, it will get adopted. And I think it will be a vote winner.
So what should Vince do right now if he wants to buy his motorhome? Should he go for the 4.5 tonne, or should he buy the 4250 just so he doesn't have to change his motorhome?
I think there's still a risk with the 4250, particularly in the timescale Vince is talking about, because I think this could be 5 or even 8 years away.
Right.
It could be. It may not be. I might be wrong. But I would say go full 4.5 tonne, because if it's over 3.5, it's over 3.5, and don't get ill. Don't lose your license. Stay well.
Listen to the doctor.
Yeah, and what's the worst that can happen is that you do lose your C1 because you become diabetic, or for some health reason the DVLA decide that you're not having one. You would have to just buy a lighter motorhome. You can still buy a big, spacious motorhome that has lots of storage and a decent payload, but you would have to compromise on that weight.
And has he thought of being a van lifer?
Well, that's what they're going to become. Yeah. Full-timers. So houseless, not homeless, as was said in a recent episode. So yeah, Vince, is a great lifestyle. I'm delighted that this podcast has made it easier for you to determine whether or not you do it. And I hope you manage to make a decision to join us in this wonderful life.
How do people get in touch?
Yeah, we'd love it if you did. If you have a question, you can ask it, you can record it, or you can fill in the form. Head to mhmp.info/ask Matt.
And if you're looking for trusted brands and services, then make sure you visit the Motorhome Matt approved directory. It's at mhmp.info/approved.
And if you're listening, please follow on your favourite podcast app. Or if you're watching on YouTube, please click subscribe and the little bell.